Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Having some tea with you guys here. Little tea, little mint, little raw honey from my wife's friends that just started beekeeping here this year. Keep some of that congestion at bay. And I wanted to discuss a couple of things here that are very important to me. And these things have come up in conversations here recently here by me as well. And I wanted to go over it. And what it is I have taken a lot of time over the years to show the different members of my family, friends, neighbors, show them how to handle different situations should they take place. And everybody talks about, how do I prep? I don't have enough money, and I think that sometimes things are lost in the constant spending of money when it comes to preparedness, where lots of situations can be handled by a clear head and decisive action if something happens. A lot of people will freeze up if something bad happens and they don't know how to handle that situation. And if you take a little bit of time to go over different situations, hey, if these things take place, this is how I would handle these. And I always show my family, my friends and stuff, when we start discussing these type of things, I always use the context as, what if I'm not around? What if I'm not here? Yes, I might know how to do all this other stuff, but if I'm not here, how would you guys, handle this particular illness or handle this particular problem? Or, if the power goes out, how are you, do you know how to fire up the generator? And I've went through all those things. It doesn't matter whether it's, starting the generator, how to hook that up safely, how to, fire the wood stove, how to hook up the propane heaters, how to go ahead and make a meal. What if something happens where the stove doesn't work? You can't, you're not sure what's going on. You need something quick. Well, there's plenty of MREs here. There's plenty of ready to eat food here. There's plenty of freeze dried stuff here. You can grab a Mountain House pouch of whatever kind you want, put some boiling water in that. These things, I've already gone over a lot of these things, and it doesn't matter whether, what happens if this particular thing happens. We don't know what to do. Come home. Just basic instructions. And I even went so far when my kids were still in school, I went over and said, hey, if something bad happens and there is utter chaos, there's utter confusion where you're at, you need to take your packs and you need to come home. And don't worry about what the teachers or anything are going to say. I'll take care of that after the fact. Something bad happens, you guys come home. And I took it a step further and I said, okay, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to show my kids, this is the way you come home. I'm going to show you different ways to walk home, different places to hide, these kind of things if something bad does happen. I have went that extra step to actually physically drive around and show them what to do. Same thing with like medical emergencies. If something happens, I've showed everybody in the family here how to put on a tourniquet. I've showed people, not only just people in my family, but other folks I know, how to put somebody in a recovery position if they're unconscious and you're afraid they might choke. You have to, there's a certain way that you have to do that. And I went a step further and we actually all laid down on the floor and I made everybody do that. There's been different times when we were out camping and stuff with people that I know were from the city that don't have a lot of that experience, how to start a fire. Something just so basic. How do you start a fire? How do you start a fire with a ferro rod, or how do you start a fire with a cigarette lighter? How do you get your tinder? How do you select that stuff? And I not only showed them, I also made them physically do it. So they have a little bit of hands-on. A little bit of hands-on makes a large difference. And same thing with, medicine, illness, that kind of stuff. I've went a step further and I've actually written down, information on, if there's certain illness, because I know my family, I know their medical histories and stuff. So I've went a step further and written down some stuff that goes just beyond the directions that are on the bottles. Hey, if this happens, this is how you treat this or how you take care of that. I've written that all down because I want my experience to be propagated. I want the stuff that I know. I want everybody to know what I know. And to when it comes to equipment and gear, I always keep it in the back of my mind. You know what? I might not be able, this piece of gear here that I've put together, this might be great for me, but what if my wife has to use it? What if my adult children have to use this? You know, what if, you know, I'm not around to show them how to do it? Are they going to know how to use that? Are they going to be comfortable using it? Is it going to be the right size for them and stuff? So then the stuff that is here that I think that, you know, any member of the household should be able to use, I have that set up in a certain way where they can operate that. I'm going to use my my home defense rig here as an example. You know, everybody knows how to use this in my household. It's simple. It's basic. Everybody knows how to charge it. Everybody knows how the safety works. Everybody knows the basic rules, the basic safety. Everybody knows that you put the red dot on, you know, your intended target, and that is basically it. You know, that's the basics of it. It's not fancy. You don't need to know holds. You don't need to know all the, you know, the fancy vernacular out there when it comes to operating that. It is a tool. It is a tool that is set up in a basic way that anybody can use it. You know, I have done as much as I possibly can to show everybody in my household how to operate all the basic gear that's here and keep things going. And when it comes to problems, SHTF situations, whatever, there has been so many times when bad things have happened when I was by myself, or it was a very limited number of people that were around when something bad happens. And I know everybody talks about a group. You know, you got to have a prepping group, and you got to have, you know, your mag and this stuff. And that's fine. I agree with that 100%. You know, you should have good close friends. You should have good people that you can rely on. But there's been lots of times when bad things have happened when I was by myself, or, you know, in situations where a family member was by themselves. And that's why I always say you want to be a lone wolf in a group. You want to be able to take care of yourselves. You want to be able to operate independently without other people if something bad happens. If there's other people there to help through the situation, that's great. But if for some reason you're stranded, you're by yourself, you're alone, the only person you can depend on is yourself. So you have to pull up your bootstraps and you have to figure out that kind of stuff by yourself. You know, I had a good friend of mine that used to tell me all the time, all the answers are inside you. All you have to do is find them. And that kind of reinforces that independent spirit. What do I do if I am, you know, if I'm by myself when this bad thing happens? Am I going to be able to take care of that? And that is what I try to, you know, propagate to my children. Even this YouTube channel that I have, you know, spent a lot of time over the years putting together, I have done that to a certain extent to help out my children and my wife and my family and my friends. If I'm not around, something happens, I can't tell them what to do. They're like, oh, well, you know what? Dad used to do this. You know, he used to fix this or do that or whatever. You know what? He had a video on that. I'm going to go check that out. So they can hop on my channel, and then I can be in two places at once, basically, because I have taken the time to do that. Now, you know, that's something too that a person could do. You know what? If there's something really important that, you know, needs to be done, you could grab your phone, shoot a little video of yourself saying, hey, this is where this stuff is. This is how you use this stuff. And, you know, send it to them in a, send it to them in a text, and then they can save it in their, their photo file, and they got it there in case something happens. Just that propagation of information, because you know what? We're all getting older. We're all, you know, subject to our own mortality to a certain extent. If something happens, you want to be able to pass that information on. And the older you get, the less and less you're able to do, just as a perfect example of aging. And to pass that information on to, others in the next generation is propagating prepping and propagating preparedness, is which I basically want to do here. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. I appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys always get some information and some entertainment out of my videos, and always some things to think about that you can apply to your own situation. You guys have a good one.